The hunt for healthy food in northern Canada is on view at all the shows that we have at the Seaport. You can almost see it right from here. The exhibition centers on the introduction of grocery stores to northern Canada and how it has affected Inuit and First Nation peoples, leading to increases in malnutrition. And with that being said, I'll let Skylar take it away. Pat, it's all to you.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here. I think you can start, Skylar. Okay. I just want to thank everyone for having me. Great festival. I love it. As was mentioned, my name is Pat King. I'm an Algonquin and Anishinaabe First Nations photographer based in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, on the traditional land of the Yellowknife Dene First Nation. My first inspirations came from my mother, Hazel King, who was an Anishinaabe artist and educator. She drew and painted portraits and landscapes from her own community on the Temiskaming First Nation in Quebec. Mine was shorter than 20 seconds.
Off to a good start.
My parents encouraged us to pursue the arts. Our home was always filled with music and photographs and paintings, including the work of acclaimed Anishinaabe artist, Norval Morrisseau. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of Norval Morrisseau, but he's one of the most acclaimed Indigenous painters in the world. We always had magazines and newspapers laying around the house, and I remember looking at the photos inside. I didn't know his name when I was 11 years old, but Sam Abel's photographs in National Geographic were some of the first that got me thinking about photography as a way to tell stories. I also love the work of William Albert Allard, especially the photographs of the American West and stories of people that live in rural parts of the country. Jeopardy clock. But I noticed a lot of the photography I was exposed to as a kid were mostly from the perspective of men with privilege. When I moved north in 2005, I became more interested in photographers like James Jerome, a Gwich'in photographer who documented daily life in Canada's Northwest Territories in the 1970s and 80s. He was one of the first Indigenous photographers that I had heard about who told visual stories about his own community. He had a unique perspective about Gwich'in, Dene, and Inuvialuit people that was really shown at the time. I always had a fascination with the land. The landscapes are beautiful and rugged, and you feel really small when you're there. But I was more interested in the people's connection to the land, and how the land provides, and how we in turn need the land, and we need to protect it as well. There's a sense of pride and love for the land that Indigenous people in the North carry with them, and I feel that too. In many ways, my photography is a personal journey to reconnect with my Indigenous heritage and the values of my parents. In 2018, I became a member of Indigenous Photograph. If you haven't heard of it, go check it out, amazing artists there. It's a group of Indigenous photographers, and we're all covering our own communities in our own ways. IndigenousPhoto.com. I love the work of my friends like Ellie Farinango, whose photographs are so intimate and personal, and they go against the white gaze that we see in so many portrayals of Indigenous people around the world. Ellie was supposed to be here. I don't know if she is, but if not, she's amazing. Kaylee Spitzer is another friend, and she's best known for her amazing tintype portraits of her Indigenous family and friends in the United States and Canada. KayleeSpitzer.com. I also love the work and the work ethic of Kili Nguyen, who I was lucky enough to travel to Mongolia with for National Geographic last year. Around identity and colonization in her community. All of these photographers have influenced the way I take pictures, but also how I think about the importance of telling our own stories. I see Ellie's picture, influence in this picture I took of my friend offering tobacco to the water, which is a way to ask for a safety chat on your journey.
Really?
I also see Kaylee and Sitlali's influence in this portrait I made of Marianne Mantla, who's an elder influence in this photo I made of hunters eating caribou beside their skidoos outside of Clyde River in Nunavut. And this is one of the photos that I believe is being exhibited as part of my exhibition. So I guess you could say I'm actually not very original, but I do love the challenge of photographing the people and places where I live. And I love finding inspiration not just from these wonderful photographers, but from my life, who's here, my family, my friends, and the people I get to meet from living in the far north. My exhibit here at Photoville is about the challenges that Inuit face in accessing healthy food, and the role that subsistence harvesting has in remote Arctic communities. This project moves between documentary and still life photography. And it was fun to do the still life because that's not a thing I normally do, but it was fun. So I hope you can come check it out, get a glimpse of what life is like in northern Canada. I'll be at the Seaport tomorrow afternoon. I'd love to see you there, and thanks for coming out. Sure.
And Hermes. I'm slightly dyslexic, so I have to go to my friend Skylar to make sure. I'm trying to do the best I can with names. Hi, welcome to the show. How are you? Been waiting for this all day. Be inspired.
I hope I can rise to the challenge.
I'm going to say something about you for a minute, if you don't mind. Anne is a Brooklyn and Boston-based photojournalist and visual storyteller. In her work, she focuses on overlooked and outdated institutions. It's been told that she has a flair for the nostalgia. Okay? Her exhibition, Local Newsrooms, is a document of newsrooms across the country, from Alaska to Florida, and of course it's here on view in one of the containers in the Photoville village. So, take it away.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank you all for being here. So there are many amazing photographers who have influenced my work over the years, many of whom are in this tent. And although their work is incredibly inspirational, I decided to take a slightly different way to go about this talk. So I won't be talking as much about photo aesthetics and creativity, and about a little something else. So Skylar, whenever you're ready. All right. Showing you what looks like a scene from a Wes Anderson movie. These are the radio squirrels of Point Reyes. And radio squirrels is a term that they apply to themselves to try and encapsulate their sort of frenetic energy and enthusiasm that they have towards all things radio. And this small but dedicated group snuck into an abandoned commercial radio station on national parkland. And what they found was a historic radio site that was basically a time capsule. And when they saw all of these transmitters and receivers that were mostly intact, they knew exactly what they had to do. They knew that they had to get the entire station back on the airwaves. So they went about the long and arduous task of, first off, convincing the national park to allow them full access to the site. And that is why you see them in official uniforms. They all wear matching uniforms, and they all have these little pins to show that they work for the Maritime Radio Historical Society, which is their official name. But they had to basically raid eBay to get parts for these antiquated machines that are no longer operational anywhere else in the world. So they sourced materials from all over the globe. They had to amass a whole collection of manuals because no one out there really has the knowledge and know-how to operate maritime Morse code radio anymore. And they also operate typewriters and like 90s computer, operating systems. So they're very much like working in the past here, but it's, as you can see, very delightful. Here's some of the manuals that they had to collect and amass over the years to try and figure out how to fix all of this old machinery that they had. So after years of all of this hard work and a lot of patience from their spouses, and a lot of spending personal time and money on parts from eBay, they finally got the the radio station up and running again, and they are now operating the only Morse code radio station in North America. And it takes a lot of hard work, as you can see. They gather together every Saturday. They have to drive in sometimes from several miles away because this radio station is in a very remote area. And they have to work with parts that are sometimes dangerous and deal with a lot of wattage, as you can see there. So I think one of the questions a lot of people could ask, and rightly so, is why do this? Why dedicate so much time to something that a lot of people might find obsolete and unimportant? And the Radio Squirrels have an answer for this in a title they've given themselves and to other people who frankly would never even dream of asking that question. And they call them true believers. And while that term doesn't have a religious context for them, it does have a certain connotation of faith. And that's part of the reason why I was so drawn to them and their story, even though I myself can't really tell you what most of the machinery you're looking at does and how it works. But I felt so compelled to tell the story of these true believers. I hope that makes me a bit of a true believer in their eyes. But from here, I wanted to showcase and show local newsrooms. Local newsrooms, working in them is not a glamorous job. It is not like you're living out the movie spotlight day by day. These jobs are often underpaid, because I don't know if you guys have heard, but there really isn't a lot of glamour and money in journalism these days, I hate to say. But these are the folks who often face a lot of backlash from their communities for just trying to do their jobs, but they understand the importance of bringing factual information to these same communities that sometimes revile them for the work that they do. And I'm sure a lot of their family members would ask, why? Why not find another job that has better hours, definitely better pay? And I think the answer is because these are true believers too. And so I hope by now, throughout this talk, that you've realized that true believers aren't necessarily confined to local journalists or radio enthusiasts, but they are the people who you see speaking today. They are the people you see exhibiting out there, because there are also people who decided to take on an untold story with no guarantee of success and with a lot of obstacles to overcome. And that is what really inspires me, is watching other true believers who have somewhat thankless journeys through their stories and projects, but they really need no excuse or explanation for the work that they do. Thank you.
And thank you very much. Quick question, because I missed it. Where is the radio station located?
It's in Point Reyes National Park in Northern California, and you can visit them because the National Park is hiring a docent for them, so you'll
Very
be able
good.
to go and visit.
And last question is that a floppy disk drive for that
It
computer?
most certainly is if it's the radio scroll, so yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much. Smita. Hi, come on up. Smita Sharma. Correct? Okay. Hold on. Let's take a breath. Let's relax. Let me say some wonderful things about you, and then you can inspire us. Okay? You are based in Delhi, right? Photojournalist, and you've documented social justice, sexual crimes, human trafficking, and environmental issues in the global south through law-informed visual narratives. She is a TED Fellow, TED Speaker, and an IWMF Reporting Fellow. We Cry in Silence, which is on view here in the Photo Village, is a result of a year-long investigation into the world of trafficking, and is now a book, right? And also part of an educational campaign. Well done. And to my fellow TED person here, please inspire us.
Thank you. Just like what Anne said, there are quite a few people here whose work I have watched while growing up and I have got inspired. And I prepared the script while I was on my flight from Delhi to Boston. But I think I'm going to just speak from my heart and go extempore. And I'm going to share a little bit, not typically about my projects, but about my life and about my childhood. So when I thought about inspiration, I thought about a lot of people whose books I've read, movies I've watched. I have grown up, I have, listened to the music, watched movies, and but nothing really seemed to be apt or something which was from my soul. And so I actually took 2 days to think about what am I going to speak. And I thought that I'm going to speak about my childhood, and this is what my childhood is. You see this? This is a place called Shillong in the northeastern part of India. You will not believe this is India because this is very different from the rest of the country. It's Catholic dominated, but there was a lot of racial violence when I was growing up. I first-hand witnessed racism. I lost an uncle to a mob violence. His head was smashed by a stone. So there were a lot of incidents, and while growing up, there was one thing that was told to us: get out, finish your 10th or your high school and get out of this place, because we were never considered a local, and we were told that you guys are Indians, but we are not Indians. So they would say we are Khasis by blood, Indians by accident. So we were treated as foreigners in our own country. Long story cut short, the photographs that you're seeing now, these are people whose stories are often overlooked. Sometimes you might just think that we go to school, we get educated, but look at these kids. And the woman that you're seeing now, her name is Hemanti. I met her in 2015 in a place at a village in Uttar Pradesh. Her daughter, who was 22, was taken by 3 men. She was gang raped for 2 days. Then she was made to walk naked in the summer heat. And then acid was thrown on her face so that she could not be identified. So when I went to meet her, she said that the 3 men were associated with the village headman, and they had putting pressure on her to not file a report at the police station. But she did. She never went to school. She did not know how to write a police report, but she went ahead to a school teacher who helped her write that report. She finally did that, and 3 years later, they were convicted. So these are the people who inspire me. If you truly ask me, they are in the worst of situations. We are so privileged. The work that I do has almost given me a mirror to see myself and feel that how lucky we are. I got an education. And this is Immaculate. I met her in Kenya, a teenage mother. A month after giving birth, she went back to school because she wanted to study. And how did she have a kid? She was violated. And she didn't even know that she had the right to say no because it was her teacher. And her mother supported her, and with the support of her mother, she went back to school. But she was stigmatized, she was shamed in school. And when I told her, like, why did you go back to school? What inspired you? She said, I have to do it for my daughter. And she was what? She was like 15 years old. So imagine the kind of maturity and sensitivity that she had. And you must have seen the lady with the gun. Did it come up yet? It will come up. So Chandra Tomar, she 89-year-old sharpshooter that I met, and at the age of 65, she took up a gun and took it up professionally. And when she went out of the house, her husband and all the male members, okay, do not go. You cannot step out of the house. And she said, two hoods. I'm a grandmother now. I've done what I had to do. I'll do what I want to do now. And she did it. She got medals, so many medals and awards, and then she created a stadium in the village for other girls to learn shooting. And then you have to listen to this. There's a Bollywood movie that has been made on her. Unfortunately, she passed away during COVID. But I had the privilege to meet her and speak to her and be inspired by her. So if you ask me what truly inspires me, I think people. Unknown people who are not actors or people who are not at the top of their game, but ordinary people living extraordinary lives, but with true hearts. And these are the people who have welcomed me into their houses, given me food. They are poor, but they will not let you go without having food with them. They are so generous, they are so giving. And I think these are people that my work, is dedicated to, and they inspire me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for just not going from the notes, talking from your soul, and getting to the heart of the matter. And that inspiration is around us in daily life, everywhere. Whoever we encounter, you can see what their narrative is in their own life, and be inspired. Edwin. Edwin, take on. Come up, sir. Watch the chords from okay? This is going to be for you. Don't jump.
So, first off, I want to thank Photoville for inviting us to participate, that and my colleagues that are here in terms of participation. I want to put this in context a little bit, what you're about to see, because it sort of divides into two sections. One of them is the people who inspired me that were before I found my own role models in my community. That is to say, people that I found at exhibits, photographers like ICP, in those little anthology photography books that we all purchased with black covers for like $3. And then you're going to see it at some point jump into photographers from my own community and from New York, who not only I was inspired by, but some of them which I actually am friends. I was just putting it into context, I'm sorry. And so it's about our sort of resilient and sort of rising above the really big waves, and at the end of the day, just being children. So this is Henri Cartier-Bresson, Frenchman, credited with being one of the founders of the system called the Decisive Moment. One of the things that inspires me the most about him are his dynamic compositions and the fact that he also, like me, has spent a lot of time photographing children. W.G. Smith, who is considered the father of the photo essay, magnum photographer, shot a lot for life, and he covered a lot of really sensitive topics over his life, including this, Minamata, which was an oil spill that was happening by a corporation that really put a lot of people in danger. Sebastião Salgado is a Brazilian-born photographer who started out as an economist and found photography and really has covered tragic events around the world, mostly enslavement and such. Gordon Parks, homegrown in New York, civil rights photographer, covered the American experience in the United States from civil rights on to police brutality and also just the way that folks lived in everyday life. Donna Ferraro, who as a photojournalist and activist known for her brutal coverage of domestic violence, which is second to none. I came across a book, Living with the Enemy, which covers this, and it just blew my mind. It also helped me to rethink some of the things in my own life. Personal friend of mine. He has a booth right out front as you come in on the wall. He started out as a taxi driver and sort of filmed every day during that time from 77 to 85, almost like Travis Scorsese's a taxi driver. David Gonzalez, another personal friend of mine, a photojournalist and longtime columnist at the New York Times, who taught me that it was very important not only to take ownership of the image, but also the spoken and written narrative. Joe Conzo, who is credited by the New York Times as having taken hip-hop's baby pictures. Amazing, he was just a kid, as he says, with a big afro in those days, sort of just photographing his friends. So he was in the middle of this. There's Meilu that also became a $1 trillion business around the world. Angel Franco, another friend and part of Say Simpson, my photo collective. He just retired from the New York Times as the longest serving photojournalist, and his compassion for shooting everyday things around the world is second to none, and he has a style of finding the rhythm in the community. Ricky Flores is also a part of Say Simpson. Ricky has got probably the deepest, what we call crate of negatives in terms of documenting the Bronx. What he calls the South Bronx Photo Album, and he's an amazing and dedicated photographer to this day. The next three are mine because I wanted to put them in context so you can see how some of those other amazing photographers have inspired me. So I'm just going to talk through them and talk about each one. This was in the summer of '89 in the South Bronx. Something I would have done at that age, and many of us who are in here probably did over the course. Jumping jacks. This is just around the block from Charlotte Street, where 3 presidents stood during the time of the burning of the Bronx. And this is something that I did when I was a young kid as well. Very creative, and another way to just create community amongst themselves. This was at a story that I was doing at a Tier 2 shelter in the South Bronx. And we had done the interview with Barbara Leninger. She was a Dominican sister who ran the place, and this is when I was just coming out, and basically just took about 3 or 4 shots, and in the last frame, one of the girls just happened to look straight up at me and through my soul. And this is the kind of work I've been doing in the Bronx for, believe it or not, 50 years. I'm 60, but I started doing photography when I was 10, when I sort of became active in the Whole Avenue Boys Club. And I've been doing it ever since. One of the things that I want to say very quickly is that I think people have a really warped sense of what the Bronx is about, and it's dangerous, it's this and that. But I got to tell you, I'm here as an official representative of the People's Republic of the South Bronx, and I couldn't be any prouder to come from there, represent my folks. So.
Emily? we'll continue our conversation we had yesterday at some point about the amazing book tour that's going to be music and circus clowns and everything else that is coming up. Come on up. Emily calls leaked recipes. Now, you work at the intersection of hospitality, performance, industrial design, technology. You are an award-winning artist, author, and public speaker, and is the author of the award-winning LOVE food book, recipient of the best first cookbook in the world at the Prix Grand Prix Romand. Oui? Ouais, c'est bon. Her exhibition, Leaked Recipes, is the result of rigorous investigation by Demetria Plays, interpreted into photographs and focusing. Check, thank you. Focusing on recipes that were shared during some of the most prominent data leaks of the last 15 years.
Skylar, right? My name's Emily Baltz. I grew up south of Chicago in Joliet, Illinois. My father was American, and the unique part of my childhood was continued her French culinary traditions in our household, which means that I ate gastronomic wonders in the middle of basically 1980s strip mall culture. And that kind of dichotomy always has kind of created a sense of an alien gaze. And I bring that into my world today, where I'm really interested in using food as a material, as well as a medium and metaphor for the work that I do, given not just its proximity to our daily life and to our culture, but also because it is our only multi-sensory material on Earth. If you've ever eaten and tried to plug your nose, you know, you got this, and then you release your nose, you realize very quickly that our sense of taste is totally dependent on our sense of smell. So that kind of intersensory relationship and the way that our senses work together as people to create meaning and perception, as well as I said, as its relationship to our quotidian life, right? We all eat once, twice, 3, 4 times a day, depending on where we are, who we are, what we have access to. So that power of embodiment, as well as its relationship to our everyday lives, is something that has really fascinated me. And today I want to focus specifically on the project that's here at Photoville, which is a Leaked Recipes cookbook. In my own practice, I work across multimedia. I work as a photographer, as an experience designer, as well as a creative director. And this book, as you heard, focuses on a collection of recipes that scrapes the last 20 years of WikiLeaks. So you've got Enron in there. You even have like Hillary Clinton email leaks, Macron WikiLeaks, and Demetria Glass, who is a friend and collaborator, run algorithms through those recipes with keywords looking for basil, chocolate, boiling techniques, and through that came up with these recipes that really are representative of most of American and global corporate culture, but with a very human gaze on it. And so I was approached by the publisher. It's published by Jean Rouet Éditions. It's a French publisher who focuses on digital culture, to create images for it. The reason they contacted me is because of this. This is a performance that I made in 2018 at the IDFA Doc Lab Festival. It's called Eat Tech Kitchen. And it's an absurdist, futurist cooking show in which you see that I, with a very different haircut, also performed alongside Klazine van de Zandeschlip. And I made all of the visual content as well as the performance for it. The images that I made, here's an example of them, were connected directly to the project, which remixes the idea of a recipe as a score, and remixes the idea of ingredients and consumption, looking at contemporary culture and saying everything that we consume today also is in our digital world, right? And so for those images, I was highly inspired by contemporary social media, visual culture, where we see a lot of these overhead shots, the way that the grid really starts to play a role in composition, as well as consumerism, you know, in the bag shots, allowing us to click to buy more easily than ever. Now, this relationship of technology to culture and the provocation therein is not new. One of my great inspirations also comes from 1932. This is the Futurist Cookbook, which was published by Martinetti, who was the head of the Futurists at the time, who took the typology of recipes and reimagined it as provocation for bourgeois culture. We were in a time of rapid technological development here. He invents things like the tactile dinner party, in which you're supposed to don furry pajamas, sit down, rub the leg of the person next to to you while eating salad out of a music box, turning that music box while a waiter is spraying salad dressing in your face. So that kind of absurdity, and I would say object collage, visual collage, cultural collage, is something that inspires me. I find it strange sometimes to be here on Earth. So the images that I made for this performance, here's another one, really started to bring in that kind of technological, capitalist consumer culture, also inspired by early work. This is some of Ed Ruscha's Tropical Fish series, which perhaps you're familiar with, kind of building on his word paintings and looking at the image also as visual cipher for American capitalism and the way that absurdity and I think collage works in there. As you can tell, and as I said earlier, this kind of outside gaze is something that's interesting to me. The leaked recipes comes from Y2K period, so I was also interested in looking at what visual culture was looking like then. So office spaces, kind of the color palettes of surveillance cameras, as well as what I think technology also provokes is this kind of fetishistic view that now we have into each other's lives, into the products that we buy. And so this kind of haze filter that you see in explicit content, as well as even slightly pornographic images, right, was something that I brought into these images as well. Not to mention late 90s, early 2000s fashion, the rise of the silk slip dress, as well as kind of satin sheets being on all of our bodies. That started to also build some of the visual vocabulary around these images. And then also the rise of technological culture. Y2K was this moment where we really didn't know if technology was going to completely blow up the world or not. These objects started to come out. So they become also really present in the characters within these images. And so with all of that put together, I started to quite simply mash up this idea of a cookbook, food, visual culture. So you'll see there are objects from early 2000s, late 90s, set against satin sheets. You can't see it very well here, but there's kind of a haze filter over all of them. I cooked, styled, and made all of these images actually in the basement of my childhood home. This project was done during the pandemic. And very sweetly, I'll leave you with this, that my mother went out and got this trout with me. But I was actually shooting this next to the dark room that my grandfather built for my grandmother, because I come from a long legacy of photographers who I think have always used the medium to help them see the world anew, to create new possibilities in their everyday lives as well as the world around them. So I'll leave you with these two, razor as knife and a plugged-in trout. I think there's two images at the beer garden here, and then there is an exhibit of this in the South Street Seaport as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Get to the Seaport. Okay, show of hands. Who wants to try the salad in the music box? Let's bring that back. Let's get something happening. Oh, it's not a big salad crowd. I can see that. Hey, a round of applause, please, for everyone that came up. When you leave here inspired and refreshed, just think about it. Think about what inspires you in your life, and how does that work into your own daily life? I mean, there's times I'm just sitting and I look at somehow I have a magazine, I see a photo, and I pull it out, rip it out of the thing, and I go, I'm keeping this because, oh man, I wish I would have made that. How did they do that? I want to know. And I think that's one of the beauties of Photoville for me especially, is working so hard with all of our teams to get everything up, the whole village going, all the images. I've seen them all, but I haven't had time to reflect. And I come around the corner and bam, one just stops you right in your tracks, and then you get sucked into the stories, and it's 5 feet high. So you're in the right place for inspiration. Please swarm everyone who talked with multiple questions as soon as they get out of the tent so we can get up. I think we have something else coming in, right, Scarlett? Yeah, and thank you for coming to Photoville. We wouldn't be this without all of you coming. Please tell your friends we're here till the 16th, okay? And reach out to us if you need anything, and enjoy yourself and connect with everybody. Thank you so much.
There you have it. Another amazing panel discussion. Not really a panel, but each person sharing their information about what they do in the crafts of photography and how and what their impacts are in the photography community. This was absolutely wonderful. Again, I'm going to be reaching out to all these people, of course, because I would love to interview them, find out what they do, how did they get into it. Even though we had shared some of this today, I would love to go deeper into a greater conversation. Again, if you are just joining me on these episodes of Photoville 2024, I have been videotaping and on our YouTube channel here on Touch Base Daily on the move, and connecting with you so that way you can see what is so beautiful and wonderful about Photoville. And again, if you want to donate, you can donate to help support Photoville by going to the website